welcome back to the Deep Dive. Let's think about the last time you spent hours studying, only to realize, a few days later that all that information has just vanished.
Right. Gone.
Gone. Like dust in the wind. And it doesn't matter if you're a professional, a student, whatever, that feeling of knowledge just evaporating is universally frustrating.
It's the worst.
Today we are diving deep into the science of, not forgetting. We've been unpacking this really comprehensive learning module. It's a system that's been developed to help learners stop wasting time on passive methods and start mastering true long-term retention.
It's basically a roadmap.
Exactly. A roadmap to studying smarter, built from, actual psychological principles, not just well-meaning advice.
That's right. And our mission for you today is pretty simple. We're extracting the core techniques. These are things derived directly from cognitive psychology and memory science.
So not just theory.
Not at all. We want to move past the abstract stuff and give you practical, tested, daily strategies. We need to understand the why, the mechanism behind why these methods work, so you can apply them right away.
Turn passive reading into actual learning.
Instantly.
And the ultimate goal, right, as the source material lays it out, is to show that long-term retention, it's a skill you can actually master.
100%.
We need to understand why we forget, sort of demystify how memory is built, and then apply these targeted daily techniques.
Techniques that actually work.
Right. Not just for the next exam, but for life, for building a real foundation of knowledge.
So where do we start?
Let's start with the hard truth, the central flaw that's identified in almost all ineffective learning, this problem of passive consumption. Why does the information just disappear?
Well, what's fascinating here is that the main reason isn't usually, low intelligence or poor concentration.
Okay.
It's that the learning feels passive. A learner, they often confuse familiarity with actual mastery.
I think I see what you mean.
If you read a chapter 3 times, your brain just registers that it's seen the words before. It doesn't actually create a strong memory file.
So repeated reading is it's like highlighting the same sentence over and over.
Exactly.
It gives the brain zero challenge.
Precisely. The research is clear on this. The brain treats repeated passive input as, like, a low-priority review.
Not new information to store away.
No, it's like dusting the same shelf without ever really organizing the books. The content feels familiar, but the structure, it's just not there. It's weak.
And we can't ignore the external pressures either. The source material really highlights how much retention is reduced by these factors.
Oh, yeah. Things like chronic stress.
The fear of exams, or maybe failure in a job.
And a big one, comparing yourself to others.
Right.
That mental clutter is so detrimental. I mean, neurochemically, when you're stressed, your body releases cortisol.
And that's bad for memory, right?
It directly interferes with the hippocampus, which is the part of your brain that's critical for moving memories from short-term to long-term storage.
So fear literally sabotages your ability to remember.
It really does.
So if we connect this back to how memory is supposed to work, we can simplify the whole process into, 4 key stages?
Right. It starts with attention.
Which lets you get to understanding.
Which then has to lead to connection.
And then finally recall.
And most learners, they fail at that third stage, connection.
Okay.
I mean, attention and understanding, those are just table stakes. If you just read a definition of, say, a historical event, you might understand the words.
Sure.
But unless you connect it to an emotion or a fact you already know or some kind of structure, that memory just stays isolated. And it gets lost so easily.
And the brain has pretty clear preferences for making those connections actually stick.
Oh, it absolutely does. This is why the brain remembers stories, emotions, vivid pictures so much better than just isolated, dry facts.
Like the sources analogy.
Yeah, think about that. Why can you remember tiny details from a movie you saw years ago?
But forget the textbook lines you read yesterday.
Exactly. The movie engaged your narrative sense, visualization, emotion. Strong memory is only built when you actively use the information and tie it to something meaningful.
And that distinction, that move from passive familiarity to active use, that is the pivot point of this whole system.
It's everything.
Which brings us to the actionable steps. We start with step 1, which is all about psychological priming.
Yeah.
Learn with purpose.
This is what the source calls goal psychology. Before you even open a book or start a module, you have to do this really simple activity.
What is it?
You write down one strong reason why this material matters to you.
Just one reason. Why is that single moment of intention So powerful.
Well, it changes the status of the information in your brain. When you explicitly connect a topic to a bigger goal,
Like your career or passing an exam.
or even solving a personal problem, you're basically signaling to your brain, hey, this is necessary data, not optional trivia.
Right.
And that purpose, it generates intrinsic motivation, which is the engine that drives your attention and makes the initial learning just deeper. You're not just drifting through the text.
Okay, now we get to the absolute core. The real engine for retention, step 2, active learning. The source identifies this as the single most important step.
It is, because it directly fights against that passive consumption we were talking about.
So what's the mantra?
The mantra is, read less, think more. Start spending hours just reviewing your notes and start spending hours using the information.
And the technique they give is powerful.
It's so effective. Teach the topic to an imaginary friend or, a colleague.
When I hear teach it to an imaginary friend, my first thought is, okay, does just talking out loud count?
That's a great question.
Or do I really need the pressure of structuring it as an actual lesson?
It's the structure. That's the key. Just reciting facts isn't enough. You have to synthesize, organize, articulate.
Translate it into simple language.
Yeah. And do it all without looking at your notes. You're actively finding and bridging your own knowledge gaps. When you teach, you are instantly performing the highest level of cognitive engagement.
So the magic isn't in the sound of your voice.
No.
It's in the need to retrieve the information and present it logically. Is that why explaining something forces you to realize what you don't actually know?
Precisely. You're testing your ability to structure the information, not just your ability to recognize facts. The psychological reason for this is that the brain prioritizes info that required high retrieval effort.
Right, not stuff that was just passively put in.
Exactly. That active retrieval, that struggle to pull the information out, is what strengthens the memory trace and forces it into long-term storage.
Okay, so once we have a purpose and we've actively engaged with the material by teaching it, the next challenge is making all that complex data stick in a usable format.
Right.
And that brings us to step 3, using memory hooks. This is about building the scaffolding for recall.
Yeah, and the tools here are really visual and relational. Think mind maps, flowcharts, short keywords.
Or even stories.
Or linking facts with stories, or memorable, even funny connections. These aren't just note-taking methods. They're systems for reducing your cognitive load when you try to remember.
Can you give us a practical example of how that would work?
Sure. Let's say you have a long, complex answer about a chemical process or some historical event.
Okay.
The source suggests you collapse that whole thing into just 3 to 5 keywords.
Just keywords.
Yeah, keywords that represent the major stages or principles. You then use those keywords as cues to rebuild the entire narrative in your head. You're basically giving your brain a navigation system.
Instead of a long, unorganized map.
Exactly.
I see. So you're replacing the brain's struggle with these unstructured lists, which it hates, with spatial relationships and sequences, which it loves.
You're turning data into a pathway. When you link dates and events as a story, first this happened, which caused that problem, leading to this solution, you're using the brain's natural love for narrative to organize the facts. It makes the retrieval process so much more fluid and reliable.
Okay, let's move to the reinforcement phase, which is critical, because even the strongest memory needs maintenance, right?
Absolutely.
This brings us to step 4, spaced revision. The source actually calls this the secret of toppers.
Yeah, which tells you how important it is for high achievement. The mechanism is really elegant. It's repetition, but at strategic gaps.
And that signals to the brain.
It signals this file is frequently accessed. It must be important. This technique is specifically designed to fight against the natural forgetting curve.
And the source gives a very specific, actionable schedule, which I love. It's not just some vague advice to review often.
That specific schedule is the whole key. The recommendation is to revise after 1 day, then 3 days, then 7 days, and finally 21 days.
Why those specific intervals?
It's psychological. You're aiming to challenge your retrieval system right as the memory decay starts to speed up.
So it's about making retrieval a little bit difficult, but not impossible.
That's it.
You're forcing the brain to work harder, which consolidates the memory deeper into long-term storage. If you review too quickly, there's no challenge.
Right, and if you wait too long, like 14 days, you're basically relearning it from scratch.
So you're finding the sweet spot.
Precisely, the optimal challenge point.
Okay, next up is step 5, which gets into the physical side of retention. Write to remember. This engages muscle memory.
Right, but we need to be really clear. This isn't about passive note copying.
Not at all.
No, we're talking about practicing answers, sketching complex diagrams, working through formulas, not just lengthy copying, which is just transferring information without any real thought.
So what's the activity that makes this writing practice active?
This is where we emphasize what's called forced retrieval. The source recommends you write the information from memory first.
Without looking at the book.
Without looking at the book or your notes, only after you've written down what you can remember. Even if it's not perfect, do you then check the source for accuracy and fill in the gaps?
So you're forcing the retrieval before the input.
Mm.
That feels completely counterintuitive to how most of us study.
It is, but the cognitive return is massive. When you do this forced retrieval, you're instantly activating the strongest memory pathways.
It's like a mini test.
You're literally testing your recall ability under pressure, which mimics exam conditions or, real-world application. It makes the retrieval process far more resilient for when you actually need it later.
Okay, finally, before we look at the whole system together, we have to talk about the mental environment. Step 6. Emotion and confidence.
Mm-hmm.
This highlights the critical link between your mindset and your ability to actually access what you've stored.
Like we touched on earlier, fear blocks memory. A tense, stressed, or self-critical brain releases neurochemicals that just interfere with recall.
So you can have the information stored perfectly.
But if anxiety is high, your access point is jammed. It's that simple. A calm brain remembers better.
So the solution is rooted in deliberate positive self-talk. Building a narrative that you're capable.
Yes. It's about managing that internal dialogue. Using targeted affirmations like, I can understand this, or I am improving every day. That's not just motivational fluff.
It has a chemical effect.
It reduces the cortisol response, and it lowers that cognitive barrier to retrieval. When you feel confident and calm, your brain works like an efficient retrieval machine.
It seems like retention isn't just about what happens during the study session itself.
Not at all.
It's about the whole holistic environment supporting that learning. Step 7, which covers sleep, breaks, and brain health, really drives this point home.
And the core fact here is non-negotiable. Sleep fixes memory. While you're sleeping, your brain is actively revising and consolidating the lessons you learned.
It's moving files from the temporary desktop to the permanent hard drive.
That's a great way to put it. If you sacrifice sleep, you are essentially deleting your entire study session before it's been consolidated.
That's a powerful incentive to get a proper night's sleep. And what about during the study sessions?
The practical schedule for focused work is the 25 to 30-minute interval of intense study.
Followed by a mandatory 5-minute break.
Right. This just respects the limits of attention, it prevents burnout, and it lets the brain refresh its focus without losing the thread.
What happens if a learner is in a state of deep flow after 30 minutes? Should they stop anyway?
That's a common question. If you're truly in a high state of flow, you might extend it slightly, but the system is designed to prevent diminishing returns.
So after a certain point, you're not getting as much back.
Exactly. Sustained, highly focused work beyond, say, 45 or 50 minutes without a break significantly reduces your retention efficiency. That break is the brain's mandated consolidation time.
Okay.
Taking 5 minutes to just stand up and move around allows that initial memory trace to set before you layer more information on top.
And there was a quick but vital health tip from the source. They specifically warn against using your phone right before sleep.
Oh, that's critical. The light and the cognitive load from just scrolling interferes with the brain's transition into REM and deep sleep.
Which are the essential phases for memory fixing.
Right. You're disrupting the very process that's designed to make all that knowledge stick.
So if we pull all these steps together, the source provides a simple, systematic approach for this, the daily cycle.
The cycle is learn, explain, write, revise.
That's it.
That basically summarizes the entire active learning methodology. You learn with purpose, you explain it to engage retrieval, you write from memory to consolidate, and you revise strategically to lock it all in.
And embedded in that routine is a really crucial focus recommendation. Study 2 subjects deeply per day rather than trying to study, 5 or 6 subjects lightly.
Quality over quantity, that's the clear message. If you choose to study 2 topics deeply, you actually have the time and mental space to do all the active steps.
Purpose setting, teaching, writing.
And starting that one-day revision cycle, if you try to jump between 5 subjects, everything just defaults back to passive, shallow reading.
That leads us perfectly to the final sort of psychological and motivational takeaways.
Hmm.
The ultimate principle here is that consistency beats talent.
It really does. It just fundamentally shifts the focus away from this idea of fixed intellectual ability.
Yeah.
If you approach learning with a system with purpose, active teaching, spaced revision, a calm mindset, you are inherently building a stronger cognitive structure. You're creating the conditions for success no matter where you start.
And the key psychological takeaway that ties this whole deep dive together.
Intelligence grows with method, not pressure.
I love that. It implies that a consistent, systematic approach will always outperform raw, unmanaged talent that's under stress.
The structure itself is the engine for growth. If you
Yeah.
commit to the system, you're basically giving yourself the operating manual for your own brain.
And that makes the process of learning efficient and predictable.
Oh.
That is a profound insight. So to summarize our dive into the science of not forgetting, long-term retention is achieved through structured, high-effort engagement,
Right. Specifically, the act of teaching and retrieval practice.
combined with purpose-driven learning and strategic spacing. It is the absolute opposite of passive rereading.
And you have to remember, whether you're prepping for a critical board meeting or trying to master a new piece of software or learning a difficult skill, these principles apply everywhere.
Universally.
Active engagement and strategic spaced repetition are the bedrock of true mastery in any field.
So we'll leave you with this final provocative thought to consider, based on that powerful assertion that intelligence grows with method. Which of the three heavy-hitter active learning methods, teaching the topic, writing from memory, or setting up that 100 and 721-day revision schedule, which one can you integrate into your routine today?
Yeah, that's the question.
Focus on shifting your efforts from sheer study pressure to a reliable, systematic method, and explore that link between having a system and actually growing your intelligence.
Thank you for diving deep with us.
We'll catch you on the next dive.